Avila, you make a number of good points. The reason I made this motion to put it at, is it metro or mid-level learning?
Middle-level learning.
Is because it is a building that was a sixth grade center, but now it only has 25 students, and that's horrible use of property. It has athletic facilities, and some of us thought that was important. And that school can open next fall of 2015. I agree with those who say that the east side ought to have a school. And I would suggest that if this passes to go at the location that the motion is for, that there be a consideration that the performing arts could go on the east side. Now, I know we've chosen Farrington, but, and I mentioned it to Ms. Moss. So, also, our legal counsel has asked me to read this motion for the record. I move to approve that the location for the Science, Technology, Engineering, and Math STEM Academy be the current middle-level learning center located at 4921 Benbrook Highway in Fort Worth, Texas, 76116 in the 2013 Capital Improvement Program. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ramos.
While hearing all the valid points that my colleagues have made, I too, as Dr. Avila, would like to publicly state the concerns that I have. While I am also in the understanding of where we are with the budget and with the limitations that we have on this bond project, particularly as we're talking about STEM, I still, for the record, have concerns with the transportation issues. I know that we have been given studies and given information, but again, as a parent and as a community advocate, I've often found that not all of our studies are accurate, and that's from personal experience. Even as of yesterday, when I was at a function last night for the superintendent recognitions with all of our young people and our teachers, that I visited with a family from Tabs, and they told me that their transportation is over an hour. And so hearing it firsthand again, not from a black and white report, but hearing it from a young person who has to be at the bus stop at 5:30, 5:40 in the morning, again, brings me grave concern as to the location. While my argument isn't for a location on what side of town, as far as who should get what, my argument is for the children, that it is not being centralized, and also, now to contradict myself, to say is what Dr. Avila has been saying, knowing that we have lack of options and what we have to work with and the amount of time that we have worked to resolve where this school should go, I will vote in favor of the STEM to be located where it is. But I gotta say publicly, I really would have wished that we'd have had other considerations, including Farrington Field publicly, for a possible combination, as may have been discussed at some point, other locations, and good financial facts versus what I believe is wasted time. That we are now our backs are against the wall. We know the rising cost of this bond project as we move forward, and how much money we may have let go. And I realize that that's not the politically correct thing to be talking about, but that's not why I'm here. And so, I knowing that time is the issue, location isn't ideal. I am convinced that if it's going to be the choice between the two campuses, the better location would be over at middle level. I do want to make a request of our superintendent and our staff that I have gotten calls and emails from folks over at middle level and at Metro as they panic as to why we didn't even inform them at all of what's being discussed. Of course, they're concerned with their future of what might happen. Will we put them together? And I think that and my response was honestly that has not been discussed from our end. And I would like to ask that we, as part of the leadership, communicate that to them, and most importantly, hear from them as to what they what their perceptions are, but also what their possible solutions are. And I would also like to say, in addition to that, that I'm concerned if we were to even think to put those younger children with our older children in the same building, regardless of the size of it. And I know that we can use our collective intelligence to come up with some very good solutions in collaboration with our leadership at those campuses. Thank you.
Mrs. Moss.
To buildings,
Give parental consideration. That's what I recommend.
Thank you. Mrs. Jackson.
Thank you, President Robbins. Everybody's hit every high point and every low point of this. This is a tough decision, and I'm a big proponent of STEM, and I believe it should be centrally located, but we had two options. That was Metro, where there was no outdoor space. Not only are we required to offer physical education every day by law, these are kids that are going to need to use catapults, solar panels, robotics, all these things that they need to utilize outside. And so if we have two choices, we've got to go with Benbrook. Ultimately, is that a good choice? No. Is it going to put kids on a bus for a long time? Yes. The only positive I can see is they can study on the bus. The second part of this, and I mean, seriously, they can. I mean, there's time management. I would expect our board president, Mr. Norm Robbins, to help us with Lockheed, and hopefully we can get a great partnership and our kids can go over to Lockheed, because is it just a hop and a skip and not a jump?
Close.
So, I hope for that. So you look for a silver lining and you look for a tough decision, and this is one tonight, folks. I think this is probably the toughest one I've had to make in 5 years. Thank you.
Dr. Linares.
Next time.
for the STEM Academy.
And I have trust in our staff. Okay, item 17.
It is just funny.
Thank you for your comments. Okay,
This week where we had this discussion.
thank you.
It is just funny.
Thank you for comments. Okay, it's been moved by Mrs. Jackson and seconded by Mrs. Needham, and I'd ask Mrs. Jackson to read the motion if she would. Thank you. Just a moment.
Go on, dude.
I'd like to move to remand this back to staff. The location of the new Performing and Fine Arts Academy for the 2013 CIP program be remanded back to staff for further study.
Is there a second? Ms. Needham, are you seconding? Okay. Any discussion? Ms. Paz?
Yes. It is very disheartening to hear that motion be made. We had a public workshop last week where we had this discussion. We went to staff and said Farrington Field. No one said anything to the contrary at the time. It is also very disheartening to hear Mrs. Needham make the comment that she has made the deal with Mrs. Moss to put this on the east side as a compromise for putting STEM on the. That's exactly what you just said the last time. Okay, well, I'm sorry. She said a compromise. She said that she made a compromise.
Please,
I didn't make a
let's-
deal.
let's just speak
Okay.
one at a time, please.
Putting this school in the cultural district at Farrington Field, where these students have the best access to the finest arts that we have in North Texas, is the best location, in my opinion, and in the opinion of almost every single constituent that I have spoken to. I understand that there are some board members who would rather put a development deal ahead of what is best for the school district. I personally believe that we are not in the business of developing land and having real estate interests that are bringing money into the school district. As I understand, we actually have a deed restriction that would not allow us to really have the best that we would get back for any kind of development deal that we would have. And also, putting this school at Farrington Field is not going to eliminate the option to have partnerships in the future with other developments in that area. I mean, I feel like we have beat this horse until it's, I just can't wrap my mind around carrying on this conversation. The voters and the stakeholders of Fort Worth ISD are expecting us to take action on this. We have been going over this since the bond was passed. And I have a written conversation.
The right thing to do, in my belief, this is an I statement, is to put this in the Cultural Arts District record.
I didn't like the way we had to select STEM Academy, but we had to. We didn't have a choice, in my opinion. With regard to Farrington Field, it's a great site, but maybe there's another site that's just as good. Maybe there's a site that has a partnership. We don't know. I just think that if we give this a month and remand it to
heard. We have been talking, informally